Hi, I'm Nick Schade at Kayaks. Welcome to episode 16 of Making the Petrol Play Kayak. In the last episode, I varnished the interior and joined the deck and hull together. In this episode, I'll install outer stems and put another layer of glass on the outside of the hull. When the interior epoxy is fully cured at the deck hull joint, you can peel off the masking and packing tape. I'm going to laminate some hardwood onto the stems at each end of the kayak. The first thing to do is clean up the ends and make a smooth flat surface to glue against. It's important that the surface is square to the center line. I check this by holding the flat sole of my plane against the stem and sighting down it to see if the face is tilted one way or the other. By holding the plane at a skewed angle to the cutting direction, I have more control over the face angle it is cutting, so I can make adjustments as I go. Shaping around the knuckle, it's easier to make a straight cut, then knock the corners off, than it is to try to keep the blade cutting while wrapping around the corner. I'm planing down the stem until I have a face about a ½ inch wide. I didn't get the installation of the skeg box on video. It was inserted through the slot in the bottom, offset from the center line by about an inch. The inside was glassed in much the same way I did the cheek plates in episode 14. What's left is the bottom edge sticking out through the hull. This needs to be cut off flush to the surface. The masking tape helps protect the bottom from getting scratched up as I use a Japanese pull saw to cut off the protruding box. I mask off around the ends to contain the epoxy squeeze out as I laminate up the outer stems. The exposed end grain of the strip soaks up epoxy easily. I paint on plain epoxy to prevent a starved joint. A stack of 1/8 inch thick hardwood laminations are slathered with epoxy thickened with colloidal silica. I thicken the epoxy being applied to the boat with wood flour for a better color match. Everything here is slippery with epoxy. The first goal is to get the stack in about the right place and get it under control with some bits of filament tape. The thin laminations should be easy to bend. If they have trouble, thinner strips will make it easier. Once the laminations are under control, stretch wrap makes a great clamp. More wraps make more pressure. After the epoxy is cured, the stretch wrap is cut off. Now we plane off everything that isn't kayak. I want a smooth, continuous surface between the outer stems and the rest of the boat. By holding the heel of the plane against the kayak while the blade cuts away at the excess material, I won't over bevel. The side of the kayak is always the guide. I'm planing off the wood that sticks above the surface of the kayak. I'm knocking down everything that's sticking up. When I get close to cutting into the fiberglass, I switch over to sanding to get the smooth, uninterrupted surface I'm looking for. I sand along the shear line to blend the deck and hull together. The existing glass has a light fill coat on it. I can sand the surface to eliminate the gloss, but I don't want to sand into the glass. I'm just roughing up the surface and knocking down the high spots. I'm going to add a layer of fiberglass to about 1 inch away from the shear line. The green tape is 1 inch and the blue is a little bit above it. The bottom edge of the blue tape is folded under so it allows epoxy to drip off without running onto the deck. Since the wood here is already sealed with a prior layer of glass, I won't need quite as much epoxy to wet out the cloth. I also don't need to worry about starve spots occurring due to epoxy soaking into the strips. The stems are too plumb to effectively wrap the cloth around, so I just cut off the cloth, leaving a little bit hanging over. I don't need to wait for the wood to soak up any resin, so I can go immediately to scraping off the excess into a grunge cup. After the epoxy is set up for an hour or so, I trim off the excess glass above the tape. I want to control the mess from the fill coat, so I apply another strip of blue tape and fold up the bottom as a drip edge. This is a heavy fill coat meant to eliminate most of the fabric texture, so I use my technique of applying the resin with firm horizontal strokes, leveling with lighter vertical strokes, and tipping off bubbles with very light horizontal strokes. The stems don't yet have fiberglass over the leading and trailing edges. I now lay down a length of bias cut cloth to cover the stems and run a bit down along the keel line to absorb abrasion. I dab it in place to help it fold over the radius of the stem. A quick blast with a blowtorch pops bubbles and levels the resin. In the next episode, I'll reinforce the outer seam and do the final prep to get ready for varnish. Be sure to post any questions you may have to the comments area, and until the next episode, happy paddling and thanks for watching.